in the sunroom, there was a loose tile. And I went over and I was like, man, it smells so bad in here. And I pressed the loose tile with my foot and liquid came up.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt, that is Shawn, and welcome to our show, Shawn. In today's episode, it is officially spooky season. It has been spooky season for quite some time, for many weeks now. And we're going to get into the spookiest things in real estate, the scariest things about a real estate transaction. By the way, Shawn, are you dressing the family up? Have you decided on a costume? Because we're basically a week away.
Yeah, no. It's funny because typically we do like a family theme. And one time we were like a rock band and my son was in his stroller with a drum set and everything.
Amazing.
Was awesome. This year, the kids want to be basic things. Like my son's going to be a ghost and my daughter's going to be a devil.
Oh,
so
your daughter's going dark.
She's going dark, right? And so I might just be a ghost and I might just throw something over. I don't know. We haven't really planned it out yet, but we're running out of time.
So is the wife going to be the angel then? Because if you have a devil, you need an angel.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we'll do that.
All right, Shawn, spookiest things in real estate. Why don't you start us off with your first one?
Okay, so I think there's three things that lump into this, and this is haunted houses, murder houses, and people dying in houses.
You
right?
really just like hit it on the nose. You just really went like directly.
I'm going straight at it.
Directly
right?
at it.
Because I think that's the one thing that people think about maybe in the back of their mind of, I wonder what's happened in this house. Or like you go through a property and you're like, I don't know, I just get a weird feeling in here.
So can you walk through a house and if the hairs stick up on your arms, can you tell if something has happened?
I have felt it a couple times. Maybe I was just thinking about it too much, but there's definitely been a few times when I've walked through and the hair stood up on my arms. And the thing is, I was alone in most of those instances. I was either previewing for a client or something like that, or I heard that there was a murder house and I went to it. So I'll tell you about that. But yes.
Do you like that stuff? Do you go out of your way to see the M houses?
Yeah, I kind of did. I mean, like, just because it's so rare that I was just like, I have to go and check this out, And this was back in probably like 2004, 2005. I'll tell you about the murder house.
Let's chill on that word because YouTube's going to like demonetize us.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's not talk. Okay, so the
Unalive. I think people on TikTok say unalive.
Unalive house. The Unalive house. There was a situation where I heard about this, and it was in the neighborhood that I lived in at the time, up in Alexandria. And so I was like, well, I have to go see this house. I mean, I have to. I just, your wheels start turning. So I didn't have a client for the place, but I said, I'm going to go preview this. And so I went over there, and let me just tell you that it was bank owned at this point, and you could tell that something happened in the house. It was cleaned up, but it wasn't 100% clean. And, one of the things that I would say is like there was a broken mirror in the bathroom that was shattered, and there was still a little bit of maybe remnants of things on the wall. And literally, right outside of the bathroom, there was the carpet just cut out of where the unalived person was laying. Now, typically, if I was taking this listing, I would try to do everything to make that place look good. You have to put money in it to sell it. And even as a bank, representing a bank, you would think that they would put some money into this, because if they would put a little bit into it, they wouldn't have that scary aspect to it and we could all move on. But they didn't, and it ended up selling. And I really want to go back to that listing and find it again and see like how many times it's changed, but I haven't done that yet.
You think the people like 2 and 3 purchases down know anything about it?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. And that's the thing, is it just gets buried after a while. And, that goes into people that have died in houses. It happens all the time. There's one over on Taylor Street that we were talking about the other day. Somebody died in the house. And hauntings. And honestly, in real estate, in the state of Virginia, you do not have to disclose any of that stuff. So no hauntings, no unalived people, anything like that in the houses, no disclosure. So you could be buying a house that happened in. So just be careful.
All right. So you hit the nail on the head with your spooky thing. So my first one on my list are easements, Shawn. Property easements.
Okay.
To me, this is pretty spooky. This is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Okay. So at its core, an easement is a legal provision that grants a person, organization, or entity the right to use a specific portion of another individual's property without having actual ownership of it. So think of it like a permission slip that allows certain activities or access on a piece of land. So the common easements that you may hear of are conservation easements, historic easements, and then the big one for me are utility easements. Like there may be something in the plat that allows the utility company to go into your backyard, and like who knows how often they're going to have to go into your backyard and make it inconvenient for you. And then, if you do want to add on to your house, or if you want to build a new house, maybe there's an easement that does not allow for new construction or severely alters the new construction plans. And easements can be one of these things where you don't find out about it until closing. And so this, to me, Shawn, is very spooky, and I don't think it gets talked about enough.
It's totally spooky, and and this happens all the time. And the weird thing about the Virginia state law is that you do a survey of the land, and there's no contingency for that survey. And so, maybe it's a disclosure thing. And I recently sold a house with an easement, and I disclosed it. I said, listen, there's an easement for the water or sewer company to access the land on the right. So that means that you cannot build on that side of the property. You have to, if you're going to build back, you have to build back on the other side. So definitely a scary thing. I was always upfront about it when I had a plat there sitting there, but in the state of Virginia, there's no contingency in the contract for plat. And I honestly don't know what would happen if something comes up in the plat, because sometimes you even get it after settlement. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the plat isn't in by the time you settle and you're not getting it. Whereas in the state of Texas, I believe there are contingencies for that, and you need that plat before you settle. So,
some agents and sellers, they just won't know if there are easements.
Yeah.
Others just flat out won't tell, the seller may not disclose that. And then they could just plead ignorance. And so that's definitely something to look out for.
The other one on that would be like a driveway easement. Like the neighbor next to you has the right to use your property to access their own property. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at this kind of stuff.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
All right, Shawn, what is your next spooky thing in real estate?
Ooh, nightmare tenants.
Oof.
Right? Nightmare tenants. Number one, I rarely do I sell a property with tenants in there, because usually it's a nightmare. You have to think that they're not going to be treating the property as a homeowner. They're just most of the time not.
So are you talking about tenants when it comes to selling the house, or just nightmare tenants in general?
Yeah. So mine, I don't deal with tenants all that much. I'm talking about when I go to sell a property. And so I recently took a property over from my client, said, hey, I need to sell this property. And his tenants had just moved out. And so the nightmare situation was the condition of the property when they moved out was amazingly disgusting. First of all, that person, I believe he said he was a real estate agent, right? But not really selling real estate. He had a dog. Before he moved out, he punched holes in the walls. The place stunk so bad. The kitchen had never been cleaned. He had a dog. He had a sunroom, and he let that dog go in the sunroom. Literally, when I walked in there was always a constant smell in there. And I had a contractor redo this, and I felt so bad for the contractor, because in the sunroom, there was a loose tile. And I went over and I was like, man, it smells so bad in here. And I pressed the loose tile with my foot, and liquid came up. It was like, and I'm like, oh my God.
That is a biohazard.
It was disgusting. So I had to have that thing cleaned, all the tile replaced, cleaned again. It was a nightmare situation. So you have to think about, renting is great. Right? Renting is great if you own a property and you're going to rent it to people, but I guarantee you there are so many nightmare tenant stories. And what about the tenants that never leave, or they refuse to leave? So be careful when you're renting out your property to tenants.
Refuse to leave during a showing. Something like that.
Oh my God, that's.
Or are you talking about like holdover tenants?
Holdover tenants, yeah. And people that just squat on properties. I mean, these are all tenant problems. So.
We don't rent shame on the Shawn and Matt show, but we do tenant shame if the tenant is no bueno. All right, Shawn, my next spooky thing in real estate is title insurance. Okay, so title insurance is a one-time fee that typically costs the buyer approximately 0.5% of the home's purchase price. Less other fees involved in the mortgage. And the title insurance companies ensure clear property ownership rights for home buyers and provide comprehensive coverage if a problem arises. Now, you may be thinking, oh, yeah, it is spooky if there's like a claim on your deed. No, that's not the direction I'm going in. I'm going in the title insurance industry as a whole, Shawn. A couple questions. Why is title insurance a percentage of the house? Why isn't it a flat rate? isn't it the same amount of work, whether it's a large house, a medium house, a small house? The cost of title insurance coverage has decreased 7.8% nationally since 2004. Why do we think that is? Maybe technology has gotten better. Maybe the system is flawed to begin with. Everyone's getting on agents' backs about, hey, commissions, shouldn't commissions be a flat rate? Why isn't title insurance a flat rate? And finally, why does the buyer pay for title insurance? Okay, isn't it the seller who's selling and warranting the property? Why don't they pay for that expense? Why don't they pay to make sure what they're selling is actually what they say they are selling?
Yeah. And the thing is, you have to remember is title insurance, there's two types. There's lender's title insurance. So if you're getting a loan, the lender requires you to buy them a policy. The owner's title policy is not required, but most people buy it. And really that is just insuring you in case there's any gaps or something that the title insurance missed or the title company missed. But wouldn't you think that the title company should carry insurance in case they missed something? That would be a better thing. And yeah, it's funny because I'm going to settlement on a property next week, and we just went over the closing disclosure this morning, and I told her about the title insurance. The title insurance for this property was over $8,000.
$8,000
for just an owner's, because it's a $2.34 million place.
But how does that? What's the additional costs involved?
Think about it. It doesn't matter because at that point, the insurance company would hire a lawyer to litigate the problem, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a small property or a large property, it's still the same problem, right? And so I don't know. It should be where I would think that title insurance would be higher is if it was like a problematic kind of thing or I don't know. I don't even know. But the argument is that, is it needed? Is it really needed? Because think about this. Every person that has purchased that house before you has also probably purchased title insurance. So there's insurance. So it's only insuring, the time you've owned the property, and it goes on until after you sell that property. That policy keeps going. But the key thing is, who makes the money on a title insurance policy?
The insurance companies.
No, not the insurance companies.
The title companies.
The title companies. The title companies make most of the money. The insurance companies get a small piece of that. And then the claims for that title insurance is very, very small.
I always wonder because you'll see in listings, use this title company, get a $500 credit. $500. That's pretty big.
Pretty good.
And then you see the settlement fee. The settlement fee is $5.99, $6.99. So I'm like, okay, so they're only making $100 to have a licensed attorney go through all this. Where's all the other money coming from?
Title
It's coming
insurance.
from title insurance. So a couple of years ago, Shawn, there were a lot of title insurance bashing articles that came out, and we talked about some of them, and some of them stated that the profit margin for title insurance was something like 99, 98%, something like that. And now the articles are coming back in the other direction saying we're misaligned on our hatred of title companies. It's, and now the title company, buddies that work at, Forbes and all that,
Somebody's
those
paying
publications.
somebody.
Now the pendulum is swinging the other way and saying, no, we definitely need this. So I think for my next purchase, Shawn, I will be scared into purchasing title insurance.
Honestly, I was scared into it. I've purchased it every time. I've never used any title policy, thankfully. Out of the 700 plus homes that I've sold in my career, I don't know of any title policies that came up later. No one has ever told me about any. The amount of actual claims compared to the amount of sales and the amount of sales in title insurance is very, very small.
All right, what you got next on your list, Shawn?
Let's go to just horrible agents.
Agents.
Right? When you're dealing in a contract and you make that first phone call and you're like, oh my gosh, are you serious? I have to deal with this person now through the whole thing. Or when you write an offer and you write a little bit low, right? And you say, here's my offer. And they call you and they scream at you. How could you ever write this is ridiculous. You're writing so low. Oh my gosh. They put all this front up and it's like, come on, dude, this is a business transaction. Let's get through this easily. You and I, we tend to, we negotiate hard for our clients, but we're nice people, right? We can get our way by being nice. Some other agents think that they can get their way by being a complete jerk. And in my opinion, you only fuel my fire to cut you at the knees. You know what I mean? You're going to be mean to me. You're going to be a jerk to me. I'm going to cut you.
So
not
how
cut
do you
but,
how do
like,
you
get you.
yeah, be sure to
hate
like
this, man.
specify what you're talking about here. So how do you handle that egotistical, maniacal, controlling, my way or the highway type of agent?
I
Kill them with kindness?
Yeah, absolutely. Kill them with kindness. And hey, listen, I'm representing my client. This is what they want to come in at. I understand you might be upset, but all you have to do is present it. I don't want to even present this to my client because they're scared. They're afraid to present their wrongdoings, or maybe they're wrong in their pricing, right? Because there's a lot of agents that come in and say, I can get you this for the property. No, you're overpricing. You're just going to drop it later. So now when we undercut you, you're going to be like, I can't believe that they sent this. They're just going to, but you know what happens sometimes? Those clients are like, all right, that's not bad. Let's counter it. So that's why I always say, write the offer. Don't be scared of these agents that are just jerks. They're out there. I deal with them all the time. Luckily, they're becoming fewer and farther between. But the nightmare agent, man, they can just destroy deals and they can destroy the ability to get through your day. Sometimes it's just like, I don't want to talk to this person.
I had down unpredictable agents as one of mine because I was thinking about doing egotistical agents first. And then I was like, you know what? If I know another agent's egotistical, I can kind of work around that and figure out a solution. Then I thought, I'm going to put down new agents who don't know what they're doing. Then I thought, well, if it's a new agent, I can kind of coach them along and work around that. But
because you're a good person.
Yeah. But the unpredictable agents, the agents that you don't quite know if their goals are even aligned with getting to closing, with finalizing the transaction, with actually going through on the purchase or sale of the house, that's when it gets spooky for me.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Sometimes dealing with those people, it's pretty spooky.
All right, Shawn, next on my list is buying sight unseen. This is something that a lot of us, I say us, myself included, a lot of us went through from 2020 to, let's say, 2023 for one reason or another, maybe we're traveling, maybe it's an out-of-town purchase, maybe there's something going on where, hey, you just got to write an offer sight unseen. And I was thinking, what's worse? Buying a house in person and like thinking you know all the problems, and then you move in and then there's like something catastrophic that you didn't even consider, or buying sight unseen knowing that there's going to be a lot of stuff, and so your expectations are pretty low to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough thing. I've very few times do I have somebody that wants to buy sight unseen like that. And I've definitely had it. And, there were definitely, I was on the listing side and, I'm going to sell the property to whoever wants to buy it. And I'm disclosing everything that I know about it. But I mean, you can tell that some people coming into that property for the first time, they were like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful.
This is like a 7 to 10 year commitment that you're purchasing for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, even if you started a business, you may not put like $100,000 to $200,000 of your own money into it. So,
and think about all those people that bought and they move into the property and they hate their property. I mean, most of my clients aren't that way, but I've heard stories where people just hate their property. They hate it and they want to get out. But the problem is, if they try to sell it now, they're going to lose money because there's so many costs involved.
it's not for everyone.
No, definitely.
So, could you buy a house sight unseen?
I probably couldn't.
Could you buy a rental property that you would never live in strictly for an investment purpose, sight unseen?
That's a little bit different. I probably could if the numbers made sense. But still, it's still a scary thing. I have to go look at the property and, maybe that segues into our next thing.
Let's do maybe one more.
Okay. All right. You know what? One more. I'm going to go to old basements. Matt.
Old basements.
Old basements are spooky and scary, right? So imagine going into that listing. It's built in the 30s, built in the 40s, built in the 20s, whenever it was, right? And you walk down those steps and it's dark, and you look down that step and you're like, ooh, do you want to go first? You want me to go first? You ever get that? And then you start walking down there and you get down there and the ceilings are real low. It's cold. It's damp in there. And you turn around and what do you see? The old oil heat tank. It smells like oil. It stinks like oil heat. I'm not a huge fan of oil heat. You still see it here and there. And then, there's cobwebs everywhere.
I thought people from Western Pennsylvania loved oil. Or
I lived in a property.
Coal?
I lived in which coal?
Like?
I got the coal in the hair.
Shawn, there's a Virginia a coal license plate that you can get, like a custom license plate.
No, that's
so if you love coal, it's like Virginians for coal or like coal is the future of America.
Yeah.
Like Virginia has all these wild custom plates that you can get.
I got to get me a custom plate. But, I lived in a house with oil heat, and I'll tell you, it stunk all the time. It smelled like oil. You had that big truck pull up, big tanker truck pulls up. They put a hose to the outside of that tank. The tank, you access it from the outside. It fills like 250, 300 gallons of oil into this huge old rusty tank in the basement.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? It's only oil, right? I mean, but I think that's pretty spooky. When you're walking into a house and you don't know what that basement is, and you walk in, and the main level could be fine, right? The upstairs could be fine. You walk into the basement, and you're like, ooh, okay, now we're getting into the nitty gritty.
And the thing about with basements is another M word, mold. Okay, so and it's talking about spooky.
Yeah.
All basements have mold. All basements have mold, and it's just a matter of when you're going to find it. Even for I've seen new construction houses that have mold in the basement. Okay, so mold is just going to be there, and then you just have to try your darndest to figure out how to mitigate it.
Yeah.
And how to get rid of it.
Mold is scary.
It's so scary. Home inspectors won't even say mold on the report.
Yeah.
They'll say like signs of potential organic matter or something like that.
It's so true, and it's everywhere. And, a lot of times you can just spray something on it and wipe it off and it kills it. But other times it can be way intrusive. And I've had clients where they were mold allergic, and they purchased a house that they didn't realize had mold in it, and they were sick constantly, and they ended up having to sell it. They tried to mitigate it. It still didn't do it. So there's sensitive people to the molds, and once it's in there, it's really hard to get rid of, especially once it's in those air ducts.
My nose just started running as we were talking about mold. So we're speaking it into existence. All right, well, that's just going to about do it for the spooky season, the spooky things in real estate. Drop a comment down below if we missed any spooky things about real estate. And for Shawn and myself, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.